Welcome, everyone, to Nat One-on-One, a podcast where we gain insight on the individuals in the tabletop role-playing game community, about their current projects, and what kind of stuff they have in store for us in the future. I'm your host, Dan Munoz, and joining me today is a creator and valuable news source in the TTRPG, especially D&D circle. He's the man behind the information-pumping YouTube channel, Nerd Immersion, an entertainment network focused on Dungeons & Dragons. A YouTube channel that has garnered over 90,000 subscribers, 92 almost, nearly 92,000 subscribers, and a community of equally passionate fans. His D&D videos cover everything from D&D advice, D&D product reviews, unboxings, top 10 videos, DM guide, module reviews, and playthroughs of over several ongoing actual play D&D campaigns on his second channel, Nerd Immersion Plays. It's Ted Sikora. Ted, welcome to the channel.
How are you?
Good.
What an intro. Wow.
I told you it was going to be a little goofy, but welcome.
Yeah, no, I like it. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. So, man, how are you? How you doing? How's your night?
Good. No, doing good. Just had a pretty relaxing day, gearing up for a regular day job night shift starting in a couple hours from now.
I dig the Nerd Immersion cup.
So,
now available at Nerd Immersion.
I know, always branding. Always be branding.
Always be branding. Okay, I love it. Anyways, thank you very much again for joining me tonight. I know it's a little last minute, but I do appreciate you sticking it out and coming on the show. So if you got questions, everybody, if you're watching here live, remember, if you've got questions, wait till the end and we will get to you for the Q&A section. But until then, let's go ahead and start today's interview. So Ted, thank you again for joining me. And as we start off all the interviews here on Nat One-on-One, I like to get to know the interviewee a little bit better personally. So reading a little bit about you in your YouTube descriptions and your website and stuff like that, it says that you got started a little early with Dungeons and Dragons and TTRPGs early on. It's like, I think around high school time frame. What was your first experience? What was your first experience with that?
So, I'd heard about Dungeons and Dragons, just, out and about.
Sure.
When I was a teenager, like early teens, and I didn't understand it at all. I had no concept of what it was. And I was just like, I don't know what it is, but I want to play it. That was the thing that I knew. And like my parents didn't know anything about it. My mom had heard of like the satanic panic, didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing she knew about it, because that was what made it probably most popular back in the day for people who didn't know about it.
Right.
And then, like I had a friend on like my bus in high school, like showed me his character sheet and I still didn't understand. I was like,
this means nothing to me.
It was like a second edition character sheet and it was just like a bunch of gibberish. And I was like, oh, cool. Like he didn't invite me to play. He just showed me his characters and didn't do anything. And then I was like my senior year of high school, I was in lunch and one of my friends just like sits down at the table, sits with us every day, but out of nowhere, it's just like, hey, do you want to play Dungeons and Dragons? And I was like, oh my God, yes, 100%. What do I need to do? And he's like, meet me in the library, 7th period, and we'll make your character. I don't know what I had 7th period that day, but it was not a study hall and it was not to be in the library, but I was in the library that day and I made my character.
I love it. This is the first I skipped school to make my character sheet.
Well, I skipped school, but I was still in school.
In
school library.
Skip class. There we go.
But then it was so funny. We were like, okay, when are we going to play? We're trying to figure the logistics of that out. So we're like, okay, we're going to play this Saturday, right? This is like a Wednesday. We made the characters. We're going to play Saturday. Where are we going to go? So the DM's idea is like, let's go to the library, the public library.
Right.
And I was like, okay. So we all go to the library. The DM forgot to bring our character sheets. He had all of them. Nobody had any of their character sheets.
Oh my God.
So now we're just playing like, we have some dice and like sort of remember what was on the sheets. Again, most of us first time playing. So we're basically just having a creative storytelling experience as we're just talking through what's happening. And we got too like loud and rowdy. They kicked us out of the library.
Oh hell, you're having a good ass time playing some D&D then.
Yeah, well, I didn't really know anything about. I knew a little bit. I'd seen like a couple of skits and stuff on D&D stuff. When YouTube was new, right? So it wasn't like a thing everybody could go look up stuff on.
Right.
This is 2004, right? So, yeah, my character got drunk. I was like, that's what I wanted to do as soon as like we were like in a bar, and I was like, I get drunk, and it turns out the DM was just like, well, you were supposed to go meet some like a king today, and you had all the information, and you're drunk, so we just started. It's just spilled out from there as a campaign does, and we eventually again got kicked out, went to a friend's house, and then that became our Saturday ritual. Was every morning I would pick up the DM on the way to my friend's house, and then we'd all go play D&D for like 6 hours.
Hell yeah!
And then it just
the good old
ended.
Days. The good old
no
days.
no responsibilities.
You sit
I'd
there
get
for
up,
hours and hours and hours.
get a breakfast sandwich, pick the DM up, drive over to our friend's house. Yeah, it was like easy noon to 6 o'clock, like every Saturday.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. That's great. Oh man, I don't think I mean I have similar experiences where it's very similar in the fact that I knew what D&D was, but I never really knew what D&D was.
Mm-hmm.
Like I heard of it. And so when I was like, I don't know, 14 or 15, my best friend's brother was like, hey, let's play D&D. And we were like all into video games. That was our big thing. We were all into video games. So like D&D wasn't even like an aspect of like, oh man, I really want to try this thing out. It was like, well, there's nothing better to do. Let's try it. And so we played it, and it was a blast. I have no idea what edition we played. I have no idea what character I played. I just was playing some goofball that I made up on the spot. And I fell in love, though. I love the game. We just never got around to playing it as often as you have obviously played it in the past.
Yeah, that was, it was definitely, it did a typical campaign thing, right? Where it just like one day we just stopped. Yeah. There wasn't like, I can't pinpoint a thing that happened. It wasn't like a cool, like
a pinnacle story turn or something.
Yeah. Or we're all going off to college, right? So we're going to end the campaign. No, it just like, just stopped. But that gave me an in for RPGs and wanting like I understood the concept of what an RPG was.
Right.
And we were all, or at least I was at the time, and I got all of my friends really into Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh hell yeah!
And at the time they had an RPG that was like it was out, and like the books were still releasing at that time. So when D&D stopped, still in that senior year of high school, I took over and started running a Buffy RPG every Friday night. So
you caught the bug pretty quick.
Oh yeah,
you caught the bug real quick.
That was like a 6-year ongoing campaign.
Holy
we ran
shit, a 6-year Buffy the Vampire campaign.
Because it went all through college.
Yeah,
and like it was like we're all home for Thanksgiving. Let's go play Buffy. And then,
did Buffy even last 6? Like, how long was Buffy on TV?
7 seasons.
So you were playing all throughout the entirety of
we call at least the last 3 seasons for sure we were playing. So
that's excellent. So before your D&D prowess and also introduction into it and everything like that, as a teenager, what were your like go-tos? Were you a nerdy person to begin with? Did you have like a big thing for comic books, video games, cartoons? What was it?
So it definitely it was definitely video games, but not till I was about 13 when the Nintendo 64 came out. So like I had video games growing up, right? Like I had an NES and a Sega Genesis and a Super Nintendo and stuff like that.
Right.
But the nature, I still think back, like the nature of a lot of those games, like they weren't epic things that you sat down. I mean, with the exception of certain like, RPGs that I never had growing up, the Final Fantasies and whatnot, you'd play them, you'd die, you'd start back over and you'd play them again, but they weren't like a thing you're going to sit down and just like, this isn't an hour long thing. And then I saved up and I bought my Nintendo 64, and it was, I think the following Christmas, Ocarina of Time came out.
Oh, good pick.
And that like that, and a reminder, in this time period, right, the Pokemon Red also came out.
Okay.
So
yeah.
like, these are all like big RPGs, a lot of my first introductions to traditional turn-based RPGs and stuff like that. So I was hooked. So then from that point on, it was video games. It was all about video games. But prior to that, I was more like I love fishing, outdoorsy
Oh, cool.
person, so I would always be fishing or hunting or archery or sport shooting, all that kind of stuff. I always did that growing up. There was my fan base loves to chat. They don't know anything about it, but I made a comment once and they just went nuts on it, that I was on a sort of Olympic archery track at a point in my life.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm
as an Olympian.
It was a venue, an avenue that I was potentially going to go down. Yes.
Oh, I see. Well, that's fucking interesting.
So like I was shooting a bow since I was 2 years old, with a modicum of skill, trick shots and things like that, fun stuff. And my dad basically at a point was just like, yeah, this is a thing you could do. Like, we can get you in and you can go and do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just like, dumbass 10-year-old me was just like, no, I want to be able to do what I want, play with my friends and hang out. And I'm like, man, could you? Because like, that's the thing, like, who watches archery, right? And the Olympics, not a lot of people watch it. That's definitely like a thing that I could have been in college and been like, oh, what do you mean, this gold medal from art? Yeah, or bronze medal, whatever. Here's the time I was in the Olympics.
Do you remember that time? I'm sorry, were you in the Olympics?
Right. And I kick myself for making choices and just being like, you could have pursued that.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
But,
you're the second guest that I've had that is very, like, truly outdoorsy. We had somebody who was very into hiking and climbing and stuff like that, and going outside and camping and everything. You wouldn't catch me dead outside for more than 10 minutes. I get eaten by bugs. I'm a light-skinned Mexican who burns very easily from the sun. It's just not fun for me. Now, I will say, if I'm on vacation somewhere, then okay, I can do it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I do all the fun stuff for the novelty of it. I love going out and seeing new things, tasting new things as food and all that stuff. But man, you couldn't catch me dead outside if it was like, hey bro, we're going camping, and it's like, cool, I'll see you later because I'm not going. That kind of thing. So. Yeah,
and I will agree with you to a point. I have often said, because like my wife likes hiking, and my friends are like, let's go camping, and I was just like, I don't enjoy doing these things without a purpose, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, like, that does totally, because I'm right there with you.
I grew up, my dad was, like I said, obviously he was into archery, fishing, shooting, hunting, all this stuff. So I was into it too, and I had a lot of fun doing it. But to me, like, I could go hiking, or like when it's the season, I could go hunting, which is hiking with a purpose. Okay. You know what I mean? Yeah, and that's just like I'm trying to do something, but I'm also getting the experience of hiking. And that's like what I would do. And that was like, my wife's like, let's go hiking. And I was like, hunting season doesn't start till November. Sorry. Like,
see, yeah, there's like a goal you can achieve at the
right. And it's like, I got to the top of the mountain and now I go back down. Like, I don't know, whatever. Kind of boring to me. So, and again, once video games became like a bigger part of my life, I'd still go out fishing and stuff and still shoot archery occasionally, but like the general more outdoorsiness was just like, but like there's fishing in Zelda. Like we could do that.
Which was bomb as fuck. Let's talk about that real quick.
I know.
The Legends of Zelda fishing corner was
I know.
The best part about that game. No. Oh man. Well, I mean, I'm super happy that it led to, like your love of nerdy things, going into D&D and finding out about it and everything. I mean, you're here today because of it. So,
sure.
Going into the aspect of turning a passion or a love for the game into creating a YouTube channel dedicated to it. What was the in-between factor there? Or did you just stay, like, one day you were like, screw it, I'm just going to film everything that I know, and then we'll see if anybody, takes it. What was the factor?
it was a pretty interesting thing because I mean, I had played D&D obviously a lot in high school, and then like I didn't actually play it all through college.
Okay, yeah.
I tried to get some games up and running with my friends, but we were big into video games, so
Mhm.
it's like Smash Bros. Melee and Diablo 2 was like that's all
Hell
we
yeah.
did.
Yeah, yeah.
And after college, I started up a game again with some of my high school friends and some of my college friends
Okay.
together. So we would do, but it was like a once a month thing when everybody could get off from work. They'd all come to my house and we'd play.
Yeah.
And it would be a 3-day, it would be like a get here on a Friday,
Oh,
leave on a
really?
Sunday. Yeah, we do a whole
Oh, it's like a
weekend, but how much of
marathon.
that? But not that much. A lot of it was catching up, drinking,
Yeah,
and
okay, okay.
then eventually we'd play some D&D. So so I had pretty much, and after that campaign had ended, which was another one of those, like one of the characters got killed in like the last fight we did.
Okay.
This is a 3rd edition game, and like it just kind of fizzled out. I didn't play D&D for years after that. And in the meantime, I'd actually started, I was really big into Guild Wars 2 as an MMO. And some of my friends were like, hey, we're going to start a podcast for Guild Wars. We want you to be one of the hosts. And I was like, I'm in. And as podcasts happen over about a year and a half of doing that, everybody else quit. And I became in charge of all of the things, the hosting, the website fees,
Oh,
the editing, the uploads, all that became my job.
Okay.
And they just at the time were making decisions in the game that I found I had less and less interest in playing the game, and I had less and less interest of showing up every Thursday night to do
like the designers of the game or your friends.
yeah
were making
the designers of the game.
Okay.
Yeah, like they kept recycling stuff, and like the creative decisions were like I'm finding less and less interest in talking about this game.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, once you start recycling material, what are you going to talk about?
And then I was just like, I would love to talk about other things that I like, but this is a Guild Wars 2 podcast. Like, I don't want to use this platform to talk about Pokemon or talk about, the console war of the era, whatever it was,
Remember when that was like the biggest thing was like
I
the
know,
console
I know.
wars? That was so funny back in the day, man.
And I was just like, you know what? Eventually I ended the podcast because I was just like, I think it's a good point, ended on a high note. And then I said, I'm going to go make my own channel. And then that way I can make my own channel, my own Twitch, my own website, and I can use it to talk about all the things that I want to talk about. The things I couldn't talk about before, this will be my avenue. And that's why it's Nerd Immersion and not like D20 Immersion or something very clearly tied to Dungeons and Dragons. Because in my mind, I was going to make, didn't have like super grand ideas, but I wanted to be like a more everyman IGN sort of a thing where I would cover comic books, movies, TV shows, D&D, RPGs, nerd stuff, or a Nerdist, I guess would be another one, right?
Yeah,
Similar to
like
that.
a blanket, like, all of the above, just covering everything, everyone wants a little bit of everything.
And that's what I had started to do, right? So the YouTube channel, the stuff that started, if you look at the beginning of the channel, was like comic convention coverage. I was out filming, like walking around. I was doing cosplay and prop tutorials because I was really big into cosplay at the time. So I was like teaching people how to make different things and playing around with that. And, and then I'd be like, oh, let's do, I don't know, the 2000, whatever it was, 15 Godzilla movie came out. I was like, I'll do a review of that, Reading Rainbow came back on Kickstarter. Kickstarter was new. Let's talk about that, And then like around that time frame, 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons was launching. And I was just like, I'm going to go buy the starter set because it had just come out. And I was like, let me read through it. And I was like, because I read through 4th edition and I was like, this isn't for me. People love it. It's not what I liked about 3rd. And I recognized a lot of the same terminology when I was reading through the 5th edition, the basic rules. And I was like, oh, this is more on brand for what I like about D&D. And it also I was like, oh, look, they simplified this. They changed that. I like this.
Exactly. It's
and
a lot
then
more digestible.
And then I was just like, okay, I want to play this. I don't want to run it. I want to play it.
Okay.
So one of my buddies, I was just like, hey, listen, there's a pre-written campaign, which by the way, I didn't know that those existed in older editions. I had no idea. I thought you just had to make it up.
They're
I
like,
didn't
here's the
know that
rules, go for it.
that's the only D&D I played was
Right,
my buddy
exactly.
who made it up. So I
Mhm.
just thought that that's what it was. I didn't know that like people were like, oh, here's a book. I'll read this. It tells me how to run the game. And I was like, that's great. There's this pre-written game here. I gave him the book and I was like, just run this.
Right.
It's pre-written. And that was, Horde of the Dragon Queen.
It's before online marketing too, where they're like, hey, check out our new product. We got this thing coming out. There wasn't really like, check out the newest adventure module or anything like that back then.
I mean, we sat down to play. I gave him Horde of the Dragon Queen to read and to run for me and a group of friends. And what a lot of people don't know is when we started playing Horde of the Dragon Queen, the monster manual and the dungeon master guide weren't out yet. Because they released the basic rules
and then
they released the player's handbook and then a part 1 of a module. And then a month later, they released the monster manual. And a month after that, they released the DMG. And they're talking about magic items in that book. There's no book to look up the magic items. You had to know to go to WotC's old school website and find the PDF that had all the information in it.
What's the old adage, like building the carriage before the horse or horse before the carriage or something like that?
Yeah. And
they had it going.
We were doing that. And then I was just like, hey, all the main books were out. And the same buddy who was running, I was like, hey, you know what? Let's review 5th edition. Let's talk about it, let's like give our general feelings about 5th edition. And like, we can talk about it as a perspective from like what we like about it from all the different books. And then also like how we think it compares to 3.5.
Right.
Because that's what we knew.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I was still doing other stuff. Like I was doing top 10 videos, but I was like top 10 favorite SNES games, top 10 Pokemon, top 10 this, but then like, I'd be like, oh, my top 10 Dungeons and Dragons magic items. And I watched the numbers of just these videos to like hundreds to thousands of views in comparison. And I was like, oh shit, there's something to this.
Yep.
People want to talk about dungeons. And at that time, right, there was nothing, right? Like there was no Critical Role. There was nothing. There was no D&D really. There wasn't really any actual play podcasts other than Acquisitions Incorporated at the time. And actually at that time, I told my friends we were playing the Horde of the Dragon Queen game. I was like, we should record this and then I'll edit it because I was still in the podcast mindset at the time. And I was we'll make this into a podcast. I was just like, all I need you guys to do is to just not be the worst people in the world. Like, I'm not asking you to keep it from, I'm not saying don't curse. I'm not saying, keep it clean. Just don't be human garbage on this recording. Like, and of course, my friends are just a bunch of assholes. So they went so far the other direction to be the worst possible people. And I was just like, it's funny. Haha, we're having jokes. But I was just like, it took me, I sat down and I edited for 7 hours. And I got 1 hour of usable audio.
Oh, no.
And I was just like, and I had a friend who was an artist. And she was like, I would love to make this into a webcomic if you can make the podcast work.
Yeah.
And get that out there. And then I can draw it as a webcomic too. And I was like, perfect. We can host that on the website, the webcomic, podcast, whole thing. And this was, again, not that I can say it would have gone anywhere, but this would have been,
it's the ground floor. It's like a good, like, base start off. Like, you've already got the website, you've already got the podcast skills, you've already got the people willing to play on the podcast, and you've got a freaking comic book editor. Like, yeah.
And it was, we would have predated the first episode of Critical Role by 10 months.
Yep.
And that, I mean, not to say that, like I said, no guarantee would have done anything, but it would have been, and like, I just tried a bunch to talk to those guys. And I was like, guys, I'm telling you, there's something to this. This is a thing. I don't see this anywhere other than AC Inc. Right.
Yeah.
And that's that's like a super high production level put on by the people who make the game. We're every people, like, this could be a thing. And they were just like, nope. So I was like, well, all right, well, fuck you guys then. I guess this isn't going to happen. And that was when, but like over that time, I was just like, oh, okay. Dungeons and Dragons. I want to focus in, like, narrow in my YouTube focus
Mhm.
to be just on Dungeons and Dragons. And I was like, well, what else can I do? Let me go out and see what stuff I can find. Let me go buy some minis, right? I'll buy a brick of minis and I'll unbox the minis. I'll buy the spell cards and talk about the spell cards. And that was like one of my first big videos, was talking about the Gale Force 9 spell cards.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and then just like it slowly started to, then I started doing a D&D news show weekly. I called the D&D Weekly, and I did that for about a year and a half, where I was just like, there's so much stuff in the D&D world that nobody knows about because it's on a million different platforms.
Right. Exactly.
Because at that time, WotC would, like, they would release stuff on their Tumblr account, the official D&D Tumblr account, that wasn't anywhere else on any other social media.
Sorry. What?
Yeah, I know. I know. Like, when Out of the Abyss was coming out,
Yeah.
they would release like a profile of one of the demon lords on like Instagram, a different one on Tumblr versus a different one on Twitter. And I was like, unless you know about these, you will never see this. So I was like,
do you think they had like a secret like rhyme to their reason? Like, maybe if we split all our information up, everybody will have to go to all our social media accounts to get it all?
I don't think so. I think they were trying to cast a wide net at the time because it wasn't as popular as it is now.
Right.
This was 2015, 2016, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'd had a couple of books out. Xanathar's wasn't even in a twinkle in anybody's eye at that point. Critical Role was still like, people liked it, but it wasn't, they were a far fetch from making a live show at Gen Con at that point. Like, it was pretty,
Right.
it was popular, but not what it is now.
Yeah.
And I think they were just, Tumblr was really popular, right around there, 2015, 2016. It was a pretty popular social media platform. So I'm pretty sure they were like, well, if we put something on there, maybe we'll get some Tumblr followers, and that could cross-pollinate elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, yeah, there's so much stuff. Like the Unearthed Arcana, a lot of people don't know about. Like, Unearthed Arcana came out on their website, and it was like super.
I feel like that's still quite an untapped resource for people. A lot of people are like, they await their news from like larger people that like, post on Twitter or post wherever. And then Unearthed Arcana is constantly throwing stuff out, but it never gets out to the general public until much later.
Yeah, it's, the fact that I can go to their website and go click on like their articles, and the last article I'll see is from like September or something. But then if I go and click on the subheading of Unearthed Arcana, I'll see all the ones that have come out since then.
Yeah.
Because their website manager, it's an archaic website.
Yep.
But like, also something, again, a lot of people don't know is Wizards of the Coast used to have their own forums, a pretty substantial forum. And that's where I used to go growing up, and even to the early stages of 5th edition, to like chat about builds and like see what people are doing, and like what talk homebrew reviews and stuff like that was all through the Wizards of the Coast forum. And at a point, they're just like, man, we're done with it now. We're shutting them down. Save whatever you want. They're going away in a week or whatever. And it was just like, I don't know. At that point, I was very worried. Like, we don't care about what's going on? Like, the fans want this.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're just like,
especially when everything starts taking off, right? You got
right,
5th
exactly.
edition is like starting to take off, and they're like, we're going to change things up.
Yeah. So,
I feel like you had the ground floor pickup of 5e, like right when the doors were opening to, again, Critical Role was like nowhere seen whenever 5e came out. They were still playing Pathfinder at that point.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And so, yeah, there wasn't very many resources. So for you to be able to put out videos like that was extremely useful to some people who didn't want to do the legwork. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
so,
definitely.
yeah, it's great. So kind of coming now to times of now. Yeah, like
sure, yeah.
Times of like, a matter of fact, a few months ago. That was one of my very first oh God, what are they? Conventions. I've ever been to. I've always wanted to go to conventions, but my introvertedness is severe, to the point where if I was ever in a situation, now this was prior to the military, be
Sure.
that this
Okay.
mind you, okay. Prior to the military, my introvertedness was so severe that like I couldn't be in large crowds for too long, or I would like start to get anxiety. I would have to go get
Mm.
air, that kind of stuff. I joined the military, and after I joined the military, lost that real quick because they don't allow you to have that if you want to
Sure.
stay in, of course.
Mhm.
But later on in my career, they had me become an instructor. I was a teacher for about 4.5 years, um, and I got to like really hone in on my public speaking skills. I
Mhm.
got to understand what being like the center of attention is for a good amount of time, like a lengthy amount of time. And then after the military, I started doing stuff like this. I started doing, like TTRPG content creation and stuff. So I took it upon myself to be like, you know what? I'm gonna go to a convention. It's gonna be my first one ever. And on top of that, I'm gonna make it a working convention. I'm gonna go there as Nat One Fun, not Dan Munoz. I'm gonna go there as Nat One Fun, and I'm gonna try to do as much as I can to try and like spread awareness of the brand, kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
It was it was tenfold times what I thought it would be in terms of uh, relationship building, in terms of networking, in terms of getting the name out there, meeting people in the industry, talking to them as human beings and not just letters and numbers on a screen. Um, it was so eye-opening that I would tell anybody who is trying to get into the TTRPG industry in any shape, form, or whatever. If you want to be a writer, if you want to be a content creator, if you want to be uh, an artist, anything, go to conventions. If, of course, health mandates warrant it, allow
Mhm.
us to do those things. But
Sure.
it was eye-opening and it was incredible. And guess who was there at the last PAX Unplugged? That's right, Ted from Nerd Immersion popped up, and I was like, "Holy shit, it's fucking Ted!" And so Ted doesn't just make his appearance known, like, "Hey, what's going on, guys? What's going on, Ted?" No, Ted comes in with like handfuls of swag, like literally so many like nerd emerge here, like, here, take this keychain, take this sticker here, I got a bag, this is like a fucking can opener with my brand on it for some reason, I don't know. He just had so
Mhm.
many nerd immersion things on it. It was so funny, like it broke the ice immediately, and we started chatting about everything. But it was super fun, it's super cool to kind of get to know you as a person, as a human, before we even like, hey, do you want to be on my podcast, kind of thing.
Sure.
Um, so I wanted to talk real quick about PAX Unplugged or just conventions in general.
Yeah.
How many conventions prior to this are we talking that you've been to?
Probably quite a few because back in 2012, I went to my first convention. But again, at that time, I was doing it as a cosplayer, doing costuming and stuff like that.
Right.
So I would go to a convention in, full costume garb. And I went to one just to do it with my friends in
Yeah.
2012. And then the next year, we decided, well, this is the year we're going to like dress up. Right? So we're going to bring costumes. We're going to do a whole thing. And this was actually in Philly at the Philly Convention Center. It was Wizard World Philadelphia was the convention. And the first day we met, me and my buddy met two girls there who are also like doing a costuming panel.
Oh,
And we
okay. Yeah.
became super fast friends. And we spent the rest of the weekend hanging out with them. And like now they're two of our best friends. And like we used to do that. We used to book conventions as a group of 4 or 5 of us and
Mm-hmm.
like do group costumes and like we'd pick a thing. And we actually did a bunch of panels about costuming and like from a perspective of getting into it and intro stuff to getting out of your shell and like how can you feel comfortable in your skin and do that kind of stuff. So I was doing that for a long time, and we would do stuff like the Wizard World cons. We would do PAX East was another big one that we would do. um And then actually through those conventions, I met some of my other costume friends, and we would do PAX East. We did Dragon Con once or twice.
Yeah.
And then one year, because of 5 years ago, maybe, I decided on a whim to go to Gen Con like 3 weeks before Gen Con. And I was just like, I asked my wife, I was like, what do you think? Are you cool with me going? She's like, yeah, what are you going to do? And I was just like, I don't know. There's no hotels. I'm just going to sleep in my car. So I bought a ticket.
Okay.
I threw my shit in my car and I was like, okay. I was like trying to figure out how I'm going to sleep in the back of my car. And I was like, I booked a hotel. I found one hotel room for like the last night. And I was like, the night before I leave to drive home, I should sleep in a bed. I'll, rest up, shower,
Yeah.
and then I do the thing. So I go to the convention. I find like a parking garage across the street from the convention center. I sleep in my car. I feel like garbage when I wake up the next morning. And like an idiot, I parked like in the garage. Like wasn't smart enough to think to park on the rooftop of the garage. So I'd be like in the open air.
Yeah.
And I went into the convention center that day and I leaned up against a wall in the air conditioning and I just took a nap for like 2 hours in the convention center. And then I was like walking to my car and I just happened to call the hotel that I had to stay for. And I was like, do you guys have you have a room tonight? And they're like, yeah. I was like, cool, book me a room tonight. I'm coming to the hotel right now. And yeah, I think that that was right around Tomb of Annihilation coming out.
Okay.
And the Venture Maidens, who are really good friends of mine, were like, they were doing the podcast of Annihilation was like a thing where a bunch of podcasters were going to get to play through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my God, that's so awesome. You guys are like so lucky to be able to do this. And they happened to be at Gen Con. And I was like, hey, do you guys want to like hang out? And we hung out and then we became fast friends. And then we were going to Gen Con together. And then PAX Unplugged became a thing. And we're going to go to that. And then it was like, then I was doing 2 to 3 conventions a year. I was doing PAX East, Gen Con, PAX Unplugged. Then COVID hit. And then everything went away.
Yep.
And it slowly starts to come back. So now I'm doing again that 2 to 3 conventions a year. I might try to add a 4th one in. I might shoot for GaryCon this year.
So my I guess you could say my itinerary for the year when it comes to conventions is I'm looking at PAX Unplugged, PAX East, Gen Con, and GameholeCon.
Oh, that's another good one I've heard a lot of good things about.
Yeah, I think GameholeCon's in Wisconsin, right? If I'm not
mistaken.
mistaken.
so is GaryCon. Yeah, exactly.
So my wife is from Wisconsin. I was like, well, hey, babe, come on, you can go see family.
There you go. Work that angle. Yeah.
So we're seeing about that one. I'm for sure going to the other 3, PAX East, Unplugged, and Gen Con.
But I will see you at all 3 of those then, because I'm going to be at East. So I booked my hotel the other day.
Yep, and I got my media badge for East as well. So we're
yeah, it's they have the media room situation there too.
Yeah, thank God, because honestly, that's a really actually good thing. Like, it's a nice way to get away from the crowds. It's a nice way to.
I'll tell you. Have you ever done PAX East before?
Not East.
Okay, totally different experience. I'll tell you that much, because it's video games, right?
Yeah,
so I mean, you got AAA games, big flashy displays and stuff. It's a blast, and I'm glad to see you there. There is D&D and stuff there too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's
it's something else, right? It's something.
It's definitely different, but it's a real good time.
I'm looking at possibly hooking up with Gehenna Gaming and their like horror stuff. And running and possibly running or being in some of their games that they're doing there. I've had a few people ask me to be on panels and stuff like that. So a lot of stuff up in the air currently about all the conventions and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, all this information obviously goes to tell how much these conventions mean to individuals like us in content creation, in the TTRPG specific sphere and everything like that. It's huge. It's huge. So don't sleep on it. If you have the ability to go to these things, do it.
And I'll be honest with you, because I've gone with a bunch of different people, different ways they go about stuff. Mm-hmm. When I go to a convention, and it sounds like you're in a similar way, I go to a con to work.
Yeah.
I very rarely go to a con to play anymore. Like, yeah, I might get in a game, and that does give me content, right? That's important. That's something, right? You get to play with other people. Maybe you learn something new about the way somebody does things, or you play a new game.
Mhm.
But I approach it from the angle of being a content creator.
Mhm.
And like I do interviews, right? That's a thing, I think we talked about it too, right? Interviews, right? You bring your camera, you film interviews, record interviews, but that also gives you an opportunity to talk to people who make products or do other things in the space, the sphere that you're in. They want to talk about their product. You want to give them the avenue to do that.
Right.
And then it self-serves itself. And then that maybe leads to some other relationship where you're walking away with some free dice, a book that you can go home and then review again, right? And stuff like
For the
that.
public, yep.
And it's definitely the amount of things that I've been able to do as a content creator because of relationships I've made at conventions is that I can't even tell you how much. Like, not to plug stuff, but Tome of Beasts 3, it's happening right now.
Yep.
From Cobalt Press.
Cobalt Press.
I made two monsters in that book.
Nice.
Because at Gen Con, I met Wolfgang, the CEO of Cobalt Press, and we had a great conversation. I said, hey, I've been playtesting Tome of Beasts since Tome of Beast 1. You guys reached out to me because prior to that, they weren't really a 5e specific thing.
Yeah.
And I've playtested their monsters on my live stream at the time, way back in the day in 2015. And I was just like, I would love to work. If you guys are doing anything like that, hit me up. I'd love to do that. And then I didn't even ask. He reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to work on this? And I was like,
I'm telling you.
I mean, that's how these things happen, right? People see how people, like, how do you, I should start a review channel. People are always saying that because I'll just take a picture of like a box of minis that arrived.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I tracked down WizKids at a convention and I was just like, hi, I'm Ted from Nerd Immersion. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
Like, here's my card.
It's funny. They always talk about, the like, oh, they must have just known somebody, or like it's all about who you know kind of thing. It's like, yes, but there's legwork involved. It's not just like, they're my uncle or they're my cousin and they just like, I'm now in the industry. You got to go out there and do the thing. And then once you start doing the thing, you start like pulling eyes and ears in your direction. Then it's like, okay, now we're going to go ahead and see what, how we can collaborate together and all that stuff. So
you want people to see you at a con and be like, oh, that's Dan, that's Ted. I know those guys.
Right.
Come on. We're going, hey, did you guys hear there's this industry party tonight at this bar? And you're like, no, but I'll be there now. And who's going to be there at the party? Yeah. Oh, look, that's Jeremy Crawford right over. Let's go have it. Like, these are things you can do.
How do you think I got this shirt?
It's what I'm saying. That's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
It's just funny. You got to meet the people. And, I mean, not going to say you need to be a schmoozer, but if you can talk a good game and like give that great first impression,
if you got to be personable.
Yeah, you can't be. And, don't come out at these things like I'm doing this to get free stuff. Right. Because there are people that are like, I want to do that. And, it doesn't necessarily matter the size of your channel and things like that, whatever it is, but you got to be cool about it. Be personable. Don't be, you're having a conversation with someone to get to know them. Maybe it leads to something down the road. Maybe it's just a nice conversation, but you got to get yourself out there because no one's going to do it for you.
Yeah, 100%. Speaking of doing things for yourself, you are, a self-made kind of YouTube. You don't have like any partners or anything like that working with you on your YouTube channel or anything like that. I like to kind of give a little bit back to the people who listen to these or watch these interviews. And talk about like a learning experience maybe that you've had that let's say, for instance, you're specifically on YouTube and everything like that. Is there anything while you were content creating on YouTube, while you were building up your audience and everything like that, that you ran into that maybe you can give advice on, maybe to avoid, or maybe to definitely do this kind of thing? Kind of how we talked about conventions and stuff, but like, YouTube specific, is there anything TTRPG wise that is maybe somebody can either do or avoid or anything that might help them in their journey?
Yeah. So I have a couple of different ways to approach this. One, if you're going to make content, you got to be passionate. This is all standard boilerplate stuff that everybody says, but they say it for a reason, right?
Right.
If you're not interested in your content, why do you think anybody else is going to be? And listen, you're talking to a guy who most of the comments on a lot of my older stuff is like, man, you look so tired. And it's like, yeah, I am fucking tired. I work all day and then I do these videos, make these videos at 2-3 o'clock in the morning because it's the only time I have to make these videos. So if I come off a little monotone or sleepy, it's because I'm fucking sleepy. But
you look tired is the nicest way to say you look like shit.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Yeah. And but a simple little thing, a couple of things, right? So I didn't do mid-roll ads on my videos for the longest time because I hated that, right? When I would get that on other people's stuff. But being completely honest with you, if you want to make like money you need the mid-roll ads, like the pre-ads and the post-ad. No one stays for the post-ads, let's be honest, right? But those mid-roll ads, they rack up. They will generate revenue for you. You can go in and customize them yourself, but YouTube has a pretty good algorithm. I just let it do its thing. Asking people to subscribe to your channel. It sounds so dumb that you ask people to do it. But if you don't, they won't. I know that sounds dumb, but the amount of people, like I don't have any metrics on it, but in videos that I put out that are popular, and this is a trick that I've done. If I know a video I'm going to put out is going to be popular, I will specifically talk about my metrics and be like, hey, just so you know, for this month, we've had 100,000 views and 70% of you aren't subscribed to the channel. If half of that did, I'd be at 100,000 by now, like stuff like that. But honestly, people don't think about it. And the amount of times I get comments that are like, you put out so many videos, you're in my feed on YouTube all the time.
But I'm not subscribed.
Until you told me to do it. I didn't realize I wasn't.
That's a good one.
Another one that I will say, if you start developing stuff and you're going to start looking into doing sponsored videos, brand deals and things like that, where people are going to pay you to either make a video about their product or an ad, a 60, 90, whatever second ad spot on a video you're already going to make. You know what you're worth and what you think you're worth, but you're probably going to undersell yourself.
That's the worst thing. That's the worst thing, is not knowing, because they're like, how much do you charge? And it's like,
Yeah. And I mean, there's algorithms and spreadsheets and shit that you can come up with, and like my recent views of this and that, and you can come up with all this stuff and you can try to do that. But what I did is I picked a number that I thought worked for me when I was making videos. And what I realized is if I put out a number and everybody accepted that number without hesitation or negotiation, I'm not charging enough money.
100%. That's a good
what I've been doing, what my kind of method is that I've been doing is, if I'm putting this out there, and I mean, not for nothing, the channel is also growing, right? If my channel stagnated and things weren't going anywhere, I could see you keeping it the status quo of whatever you're charging. But my channel, especially when I look at like some of these people and they're like, hey, you did a video for us back in June, we'd like to do it again. And I'm like, I've gotten 30,000 subscribers and, over 1 million views since then.
Yeah.
The numbers have increased. But what I do is, if 5 different people, specifically different people that I haven't worked with already, reach out to me and all 5 of them accept the rate that I give them without question, it's time to raise the rates. Because I'm open. I'll negotiate with people. You want to do a multiple video deal? We can cut it. You want to send me product to review physically? I'll cut stuff off. We can have a conversation. But if they're like, yep, no problem.
Then you're like,
that was way too quick for you to just be like, and especially if they don't ask to see metrics on what you've converted, something's wrong. Right? If they're not like, hey, can you show me any numbers you've done Kickstarter stuff in the past? Can you show me how much revenue you've generated for other creators? Also, that would be another thing. Keep metrics, right?
Right.
If people are going to say, hey, promote my Kickstarter, ask them, do you have a tracking link you want me to use specifically? Because you want to know, if someone says, hey, make a Kickstarter sponsored video for us, you want to say like, hey, 20% or 10%, 3%, whatever it is of the Kickstarter goal was made by me. And you can use that to leverage yourself going forward with other companies.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, I severely undercharged my rates for a long, long time because like everybody, I get it. It's nice, right? Hey, people are paying me to do stuff, right?
Yeah.
I'm all about it, but you might make more videos that way, but you could be doing a lot more for yourself. And then you can take that money and pay for a hotel room to go to a convention and do stuff in person. Upgrade your camera gear or whatever the case
I feel
may
like
be.
it's one of those things too that it's like, would you consider this is to me to Ted? Would you consider it taboo to talk about like how much like a start out, like if you were approached by somebody and let's say your channel has just over 1,000 or maybe 1,500 subscribers or something like that, and you're approached by a person saying like, hey, let's make a video for you, $50 take or not, not like a
Yeah,
video,
sure,
but a
but
sponsorship, like sponsorship,
yeah.
$50. We'll give you $50 and you can make a 30 to 1 minute ad and here's your script or something like that. What is bare minimum where people should be like starting out to if they are approached with the sponsorship idea?
So okay, so yeah, it's again, it's tricky, right? How often do you make videos? That's one thing I would say.
Okay,
Are
yeah.
you doing a video a month? Because that's going to be your only content you make for that month is going to have a sponsorship on it. And that you need to consider, right? Because if you have fans that are waiting at bated breath for your singular video, it depends on how many people are also watching it too, right? One of the, the nice things for me, honestly, is I put out a lot of content, but that also makes me more available to people.
Right.
Because I know some of the people that I've worked with are like, yeah, we wanted to work with so-and-so, but he's booked out for 8 months because he does one video a week or whatever, you know what I mean? Or
I get
one video every other week, whatever the case is. And like, that means you need to regiment out your sponsorship spots, or if somebody does a long-term contract, you're going to be behind. So if I do 5 videos in a week, that's 5 potential sponsorship spots, right?
Right.
But so I can take on other things. I'm not suggesting that you make 5 videos a week either. I'm not. But you need to think about, and like another thing that I personally, this is how I started, and I still kind of fall into that. This is a personal thing, right? You want to talk about, you want to have a sponsorship of, Skillshare, Raid Shadow Legends, whatever. Does that service your content in any way, or is it just a paycheck?
True.
Which is fine. You can do that. No one's gonna. YouTube is television now, right? Everybody understands there will be commercials, there will be ads. You want to be successful and you want to keep doing this, you will run sponsorships.
Right.
That's fine. I personally like to try to take a lot of my sponsorships from things and creators in the TTRPG space, so that the thing that I'm talking about services all of the other content, right? Like I might be talking about a Critical Role book today, but my sponsorship is these people that make dice.
Right.
Works together.
Right.
Not everybody's going to have that option. But you also have to feel comfortable in, look at the terms too, right? Like what are they for? Are they forcing you to only, is it like, do they give you a script? Do you feel comfortable reading off of that script? Is it going to seem like a stark contrast to how you make your videos? Because we all know there's a reason why so many Skillshare videos say the exact same thing, because they tell you, here's what you need to say.
Yeah.
But if they're somebody and they're willing to work, maybe you can come up with something for that. Are they sending you a physical product? Because you might want to say, well, you're sending me something, I'll do this for free. But they probably have sent this to a ton of other people too. So, and I also like to try to take sponsorships where they let me be honest, for lack of a better term, with what I'm doing. like if I have an issue with the product,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have to be forced to talk only positively about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I don't want to be
When you're
fake
clearly
about
biting your tongue.
it. Right. But like there are things that come through like that.
Yeah.
And then other thing I'd say too is be mindful of depending on how you want to go about it with the affiliate stuff. A lot of companies will offer you affiliate programs. It's really nothing for them to do that.
Nat One Fun is case in point. We have affiliates coming out of the woodwork.
Right. And I mean, I have a handful of different companies, 1985 Games actually being one of them as well.
Exactly.
Or I have affiliate codes and things like that. They can be good, but it depends on your viewership, right? That's how affiliate codes work. If you have 10 people watching your videos and all 10 of them buy the thing, you've saturated your market and you're not getting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if people want to give you a sponsorship and say, hey, talk this for $50, you now have $50, right? You know what I mean? So some companies will try to do both. We'll do sponsored videos and an affiliate. And then they might try to say, well, you knock a little off of your price because we'll give you a revenue share of whatever the case may be. And it's hard, right? I would say if you're going to take a sponsorship, look at the product. In this world, check out the social media of the people that you're talking about, because they might be horrible people, but they want to get their product out there, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, case in point, a little while ago, right, with the TSR games thing, right? That was a whole thing that had happened.
Yep.
And on paper, it's like, hey, TSR is back. That's cool. Little bit of digging, not so cool.
Oh boy.
Like I had made a purely news-based video about how the TSR is back.
Yep.
And then about 4 days later, I deleted that video.
I've made a mistake.
Well, it's back. And then I was like, I don't want to give these guys any publicity of any kind.
That's true. I was going to say, I wondered how the comment section to that video was.
Well, the comments before it came out were very much like, there's a lot of people that are like, this is cool. Glad to see them coming back. Oh, it's a Gygax. That's the thing. That's cool. And then there were some people who are like, oh, they had a Kickstarter. It doesn't look like it's, put out what they said they were going to do. So that might be weird. People should be wary, blah, blah, blah. And like, I think they had Larry Elmore do the art or something. It was cool. Some of the art they had on their page. But yeah, very quickly, I was like, oh no, these are horrible people. And I was like, I don't want to give them any publicity.
Yeah, no, that's great.
All.
That's a good pull by you, and that's a good kind of.
Well, shortly after, I got an email from them saying like they had saw that I'd made a video. They wanted to be like, hey, how would you want to work together? And I was just like, delete. I mean, they were like, we saw.
That's the most boss shit I've ever heard. From
I mean, it.
Get out of here.
You just gotta. Well, you gotta be. This are things, right? I mean, this company comes out of the woodwork, you've never heard of them before, and they're willing to give you money. That sounds great, right? But also be mindful, because there are people that are doing this. They'll tell you all this stuff, and they are, a lot of the times you can tell that they're scams. When they misspell the name of like Canon cameras in their email to you, but they're like, we'll give you $8,000 to make this video about a Canon camera. And you're like, well, I could use $8,000 and a Canon camera. Sure, let's go. But no, obviously it's fake. And I got tired of forwarding these to the brands and saying like, do you know this is happening? And they're like, oh no, thank you. That's like, they all go into my spam folder now.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, if it services your content, great. If it's something you are interested in, specifically also if it's something you're already using, that's always a good thing, right? If you're a big fan of Razer keyboards and Razer says, hey, we want to pay you to do an ad, you could say, hey, I've been using a Razer keyboard for 5 years. I like this. This is Kismet. Here we are,
Yep.
But yeah, feel what's it worth to you, right? If you were watching you not being you and someone that you put out an ad, would you feel comfortable watching you talk about this? And you were like, I hope he got paid good for this because it's about Raid Shadow Legends, and everybody had, you know what I mean?
I think my favorite Raid Shadow Legends commercials are the ones from like the higher end channels, because they can say whatever the hell they want about Raid Shadow Legends. So it's like, hey, guess what we're sponsored by? Yep, fuck me right. Raid Shadow Legends.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't
gotta
know
pay the
what
bills.
I
Raid
don't know
Shadow
what their
Legends.
marketing budget is, but it has to be insane.
It's in the billions at this point. This thing is like constantly being given out. It's crazy. It's crazy. Okay, so that was insightful as shit. I'm gonna go back and re-listen to this because that is some stuff I need to take notes on. Thank you, Ted. That was incredible.
Of course.
So real quick, let's go over a few things before we get to the chat and get a few Q&As before we call it a night.
Sure.
So last but not least, you do have a series on your second channel, Nerd Immersion Plays. A few live plays or actual plays of D&D based games. You have a game called Scalebound.
Yes.
Would you care to describe real quick what each of these are? So Scalebound is your first one here.
Yeah, so Scalebound is actually it's an interim campaign because we were playing one of my other campaigns for a very long time. 3 years, 120 something sessions, a long running campaign.
120. That's a good one.
Yeah, and it was winding down to finally closing out the story. The party's like level 17 is a good, we're gonna do it, guys. We're gonna finish the campaign, you know. And then unfortunately, one of my players, his fiance has some medical issues, and the COVID, we had to go remote for a long time. Then we were back together. And then unfortunately things got a little bit worse. She's okay and everything's fine now, but he had to leave. And we're like, we're not going to stop this 3-year journey without him. We're not going to do it. So we said, let's put it on hold and we'll just wait. And then we're like, well, now what do we do though? Because we've been doing this every Tuesday for years.
Right. And everybody else is still wanting to do at least something.
So one of my buddies who was the player, he said, well, how about, so now that leaves 3 of us left at the table.
Okay.
He says, how about I run a game for the 2 of you guys, me and, one of our other players. So we're like, okay, 2-player campaign. That's kind of hard to balance because everything's built for more. So he said, I had this idea pulling from like Aragon, Dragon Riders of Pern thing where it'll be you guys as your character. And then also you have a dragon. And it's like a second character. You guys can only be like martial characters and the dragons will be the full casters, but you'll have like a shared link. We'll use spell points instead of spell slots.
Okay.
And you can cast magic through you. Like you have their pool of spell points. They can use them to cast spells. You can use them to cast spells, but whatever they are, you'll have to use that casting stat. So like if they're a wizard and you're a barbarian, when you cast it, it's your intelligence modifier.
Right.
And then the DM's like, you guys come up with all of the story stuff for your characters. I'll control the dragons in social situations. You control them in combat.
Gotcha. And
that has kind of been this campaign. We're in 20 something episodes in of this interim campaign. And it's actually a lot of fun. It's just very different.
It sounds fucking cool. I mean, that concept alone is really neat. Now, I've always heard of like, DM controlled characters and stuff like that. You always hear about like, DM PCs and stuff.
Sure.
But to have them be specifically tailored to your characters and not be like just like a random NPC that joins as a party member. That's very interesting, and to have it be like a bonded link between the two, I love that.
Yeah, awesome. And we get to also give the dragons got an ability from the martial characters too, so we can cast spells, and they start out every time the dragons game. They basically have their class levels of whatever their class they are, so they get subclasses and stuff too.
Okay,
but we changed like the mechanics aren't like this dragon stat block. We gave them a specific stat block and different things, and like their breath weapon uses the spell points too, so you can scale it up to do more damage.
That's fun. I love that. That's really cool.
And they got something back, so we have to choose either one of our first or second level abilities to give. So it's a barbarian and a wizard, so the barbarian gave the wizard the ability to rage. And I'm a monk, and my dragon is a cleric. So I gave her the basically key points so she can patient defense and dodge and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of our little shared bond. Every time they get an ability score, they increase in size. So they're one level away from being large size, and we'll be able to ride them finally. So
That's excellent. I love that. Wow. Okay, so I need to check that one out. That's already on the checklist. Everend.
So Everend is my homebrew campaign in my homebrew world of Everend. So this is that game that is on hiatus at this point.
Okay.
So we had played a long-running campaign set in the Forgotten Realms that started off as Lost Mines of Phandelver and then went into just like my homebrew version of the Forgotten Realms.
Got it.
It was all over the place. It was just like really goofy first campaign. And then that unexpectedly ended with a TPK. That's a story for another time. And then I basically told everybody, I said, you know what I've never done? I've never created my own world. I've created my own stories in an existing world, but I've never built something from the ground up, and I want to do that. So I told everybody, I said, I want to take some time off, and I want to not run any games really, but I want to build this world, and then we'll play it when it's ready.
Right.
So then we cycled through other people DMing other pre-written campaigns, Out of the Abyss, Storm King's Thunder, Tomb of Annihilation, Curse of Strahd, all of these to like, one, to get the content that other people would like to see because it's pre-written campaigns.
Right, exactly.
And then I could build this world. And then we started in my homebrew world, and we've been playing through it. And then they got high levels, multiversal travel, and a whole large prophecy, end of the world thing. And like they were about to get to the last bit of the prophecy, and then that's when we stopped playing
all the stuff. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that come back then, because that sounds like a pretty interesting story as well. And then last but not least, current campaigns wise, you have an amazingly named game called Evil Game, where you play an evil campaign.
Yeah. So we had talked about this as a joke for a long time about like, could it be done? Right. That was the big thing.
That's a big question across like all of D&D, is like people wanting to see like, evil only campaigns and see them done right.
Yeah, so it started off, my buddy Jake, who's the one who had to leave. He's the one who runs this, so it's also on hiatus, obviously, because he's the DM.
Sure.
We decided to take the last Tuesday of the month off, and he would run this game. So 3 weeks of my campaign, 1 week of his.
Got it.
And we were doing all of that. And yeah, basically we all sat down and we said, like, let's come up with evil characters. And everybody's a variety of different options. And then it came down to part of the original discussion was what's your redeeming quality, right? Because not all evil character, you can't just have evil for the sake of evil, is kind of boring.
Yeah.
And like, what was your history? What led you to become evil? And then we've just basically been playing through this, and it's been very interesting because everybody's a piece of shit. It's an evil campaign, right? I mean, but the thing is, like, why are we a party, right? We come to that often.
Exactly.
And what it's come down to a lot is everybody has their own motivation for things that they're doing, right? My character is looking to figure out tragic backstory that led him to become evil. And he wants to figure out what happened and get strong enough to be able to stop that, whoever did it to him, to stop it, fix it, get back, revenge story.
Sure.
Another one is a warlock. So her like patron is basically like, I need you to go do these things. You get missions every so often, go off and off these people, whatever. And she's like a jokery style type where she likes coming up with like urban legends and like making them up in the moment. Like, this is a new urban legend, we're making it right now. This is the guy who sews feet together. I don't know, whatever. And we have a barbarian who's just, his whole life has been hard. He's been just dealing with shit his whole life. So he just takes it out on whoever he wants. And, my sister plays a blood hunter who's, has lycanthropy and blah, blah, blah. And she's big into, dead things and stuff like that. So what it comes down to a lot is we make more chaos together than we do apart.
And
We're
that
better
entertains the group enough to stay together.
so far, you know. I mean, it's interesting because like trying to figure out what we're gonna do, right? There's no big bad, right? There isn't one. Or big good, I guess, right? There's nothing, there's nobody to, we don't have a vendetta against anybody. That would be something where DMing it, I would want to instill like the goodiest of two shoes,
Sure,
who just thwarts us. You know, it started off with missions, right? We were doing a mission here. I work for a crime family. I need people to do this. You guys are good. You come with me. We'll do this mission. And it's been a lot of that. And then putting us in a lot of situations where it's like, we need to survive. We can survive better together.
See, that's been what I've read, what I've seen online is like how to keep these parties together is one, they're using each other. They're all secretly just, you know, they're better together because to get to there's an ends to their means, and in order to get there, using the party is the best way to do it. And that's kind of like what I've seen online. So having the party around is better for them in the end.
Yeah, I mean, it has led to some sketchy situations, right? Where the one party member was going into what looked like an evil Willy Wonka, you know, warehouse situation. And my character, who's a bard, was just like, I'm pretty sure this is run by a hag. I'll stand outside. You guys go.
Okay.
And I was just like, I'm not, it's a hag. I don't want to die.
Yeah.
I'm good. You know, and that was what happened. I sat outside.
And they went into a hag's house.
Yeah. And then like they made it out, most of them. And I was just like, did you find what you were looking for? And they're like, sort of. And I was like, cool.
Where's Jerry?
Yeah, right. Exactly. We went in with an NPC. The NPC did not make it back out. But it's been a very interesting experience because like I'm a bard and I've never given anybody bardic inspiration.
Oh, for sure. Right.
Because I'm a whispers bard, so I can use it to do extra psychic damage, and I've only used it for that. And it's very interesting. I'm the I have healing word, and that's the only healing in the party. And I very rarely use it.
Begrudgingly.
Like when our barbarian goes unconscious and I need a meat shield, I bring him back conscious so I can get him in front of me. Like that's how it works. But we have a lot. Everybody has a lot of fun with it. Like
it has to be mutual. It has to be like everybody on the same page.
But yeah, there's definitely been like will you help me do this? And it's like, fine. What are you gonna do for me though? You owe me one. When I get into the next situation that I'm in, your dimension door me out of here. You can't ask any questions. Like that's what we're doing, you know?
Exactly. When I come with bloody gloves and tell you we gotta go, then you gotta just unquestionably let's go.
Yeah, like I said, I hope that it eventually gets to a genesis point where we have like you think about all the shows you watch where there's like the bad guys that are the recurring bad guy that are kind of goofy and they get beaten and they run away.
Right.
We need that, but a good guy.
I agree.
So that
maybe like an Uber Paladin or something like that, or maybe like a knight in shining armor style,
or an order of people, so that if we kill one of them,
too. Yeah,
we can get a new one. You know,
exactly. That's a good one too. All right. Well, thank you again so much for joining me. We're going to go ahead and hit up chat, see if chat is still awake here. If you guys could throw some Q&As, if you have any questions about YouTube, if you have any questions about D&D, maybe there's some content that's coming out or anything like that, that you have any questions about, maybe content creation in general.
Sure.
Yeah, throw it out. By the way, welcome in Trash Boat and Tankards. Welcome in. I saw you guys kind of pop in last minute. We have talked about all kinds of stuff today, including, how to go about starting off a YouTube channel in the TTRPG world. We talked about how conventions are huge when it comes to networking and really getting started on the right foot when it comes to content creation and collaborating with different individuals, and all kinds of stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, Ted, I honestly, I came into this knowing that, you have this insane work ethic because I have never seen another TTRPG creator, and this is true. I think in all aspects, I at least haven't found one myself. I have not seen another TTRPG creator that puts out a video either every day or every other day, like you do. And it's
Put
really
3 out today.
it's yeah. Well, hey, you want to go? I put 6 out today. How about that?
Yeah, all right.
And it's backlog shit. I should have put it out.
Mine was all recorded today, but that's fine.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, mine is way backlogged.
No, I'm just messing, but yeah.
No, but no, I'm being 100% honest and true with you. That it's inspiring. It's inspiring because that's one of the things that a lot of people will attempt to do, but never do it as good as you can do it, because you put out not only general content like, every day, like, or every other day or something like that, where it's just, hey, check this out. Hey, check this out. It's useful information. It is jam-packed full of information, or even opinions. Some of my favorite things that you do are like the top 10 lists. And those aren't even like information pieces necessarily. Those are just like, hey, this is cooler than the last thing, or this is cooler than that kind of thing, or this is more useful than that. All that kind of stuff put together in essence, whenever you have all that information just kind of seeping out of you, it allows us as an audience to appreciate you even more for the obvious hard work that goes into everything you put out. So I, as an individual, want to thank you for everything you've done over the past few years, that I've gotten to know you as a content creator, because before I even met you at PAX, but it seriously has been a pleasure to get to know you as an individual and as a person, and now as an interviewee now on the show. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you again, all of the kind words. Like I said, I wouldn't recommend anybody do what I do to the degree that I do it. You want to make content, that's great. I don't know. I just got into it. Really started with the pandemic, honestly. I found
that a lot of people in the TTRPG world, Kickstarters, they started their Kickstarters during the pandemic. They really like kicked their whatever into high drive whenever the pandemic started. I think that's been the same story for a lot of people.
Well, it's been, a silver lining, right? I used to work in an office, right? I've been working from home. So if a news thing dropped and I'm sitting at my desk, like my work computer's here in front of me, and the news drops, on this monitor, I can shoot a video in 20 minutes and then go back to work, Yeah. But I know a lot of people, especially at the start, it was, and not to say that it isn't still rough, but there's a lot of like, people are in rough spots, depression, not sure what's going on. And I was like, if I can put out one thing a day to get people's mind off of the world, then that's a very minor thing for me to do. And it might mean something to somebody. So let me try, right? See what I can do. Maybe it helped, maybe it didn't, but it made me feel good to do it. So I kept doing it. And then it was just, that's
a really inspirational way of looking at it, because honestly, I think other people would look at it as like, got to do my job, or, got to do another video or whatever. It's not like you have a secondary, motive behind it. So that's very, very cool. Very humble way to look at it. We do have one question in chat. It says, how do you stay creative? It feels like I've been tapped as of late when it comes to ideas and creativity. How do you generally stay creative? What is your creative outlet?
So it's, for me, honestly, a lot of my creative outlet is the videos, right? I find, I would be talking and boring my wife with the stuff that she doesn't care about if I wasn't making a YouTube video. So instead, I pretend like there's somebody on the other side of the camera, and I just talk at it.
Who's
like
really excited about what you have to say.
Right. And I think that's part of what makes my content more digestible for a lot of folks than being a super, and like, yes, I could make a very high quality, highly produced video with typical YouTube jump cuts and graphics on the screen, and, my camera slides over here and it's like, oh, now I'm like this and I'm a GIF and all, I could do that. Right. I have the skills to do that. These are things I could do.
Yeah.
But I try to approach my content and a lot of the stuff that I do as what I would call like an every person, right? You know, like I'm street level person. I'm trying to show you what like there, you know, there's no, I'm not behind a
There's no
green
bells and
screen.
whistles.
Yeah, you know, I'm trying to keep it real ground level stuff. And I'm trying to treat it more like I'm having a conversation, which I do think does make me more approachable too at these conventions. People feel like they can just come and talk to me because my content comes off like I'm just having a conversation with you. It's not like I'm up here having talking this information down to you. We're having a one-on-one. So to a degree, that's I use this as a creative outlet to get my thoughts out on paper. It also, people love to correct you on YouTube, which is great because it drives up the algorithm, but it also makes future video content.
Ooh, that's
Um,
true. That's true.
but honestly, what I've, you know, for the longest time until maybe 6 months ago, I wasn't doing anything for me. I would go to work all day. I, you know, spend time with my kids and my family, which is, you know, for me, but it's, you know, it's family time and, you know, and then I would finish up with that around 10 p.m. And then I just come and make Nerd Immersion videos and think about stuff and research content and all the stuff and just do videos till like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Ooh,
And then I would
yeah.
just repeat that
Yeah.
day after day. And recently I just started getting back into like playing some video games. And honestly, that like 1 to 2 hours of me just like playing a game and like finding
Just
one of my
stepping
old group.
away.
Yeah. Finding one of my old group of friends to play games with and just like
Mm-hmm.
chat on Discord and just bullshit. And even if I'm not even playing the game, just talking to people about non D&D related stuff
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
YouTube related stuff
Mm-hmm.
is amazing, you know. And I told you I do woodworking and
Yeah.
things on hands-on stuff where I can shut the screens off, maybe put on a podcast or an audiobook or some music or nothing and just listen to the sound of the tools and just go make something. And that helps me just doing something else. Kind of that whole concept of if you're not thinking about something, it'll trigger, you know, you'll think about it, you know, subconsciously and then
Yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think taking that step back is huge.
For somebody who is constantly putting out not only just content but decent content, you really have to step away from that sometimes in order to get the creative juices flowing, because I feel like you could fall into a rut really easy. Like you could fall into
Super easy.
a very like consistency rut. And if you fall into that consistency rut, your creativeness starts to kind of take a dive. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about there, if I'm not mistaken.
No, and it's true. And I've been playing D&D, right? I've been running games lately because, you know, my game's on hiatus. But I also think that helped me too, right? Thinking about what the party's going to do every week,
Mm-hmm.
which is D&D related, but it's a different thing, you know? I don't have to think on my feet right now. I'm making the DM think on his feet,
Right.
you know? But like that keeps you sharp when you're like, what are they going to do?
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's a whole different can of worms that I would love to talk about at some point, to maybe during one of these
Sure.
interviews. But it definitely is a whole different world between being a dungeon master for a long time. I know I saw in your bio and everything like that, DM, a forever DM. That is cut and paste to a lot of people, including myself.
Sure.
And for forever DMs and for people who DM all the time, DMing is great. That's why we do it. That's why
Sure.
forever DMing is a thing. DMing is great. And people get to explore the world that we create. But being a player is just as great, because you get to jump into the world that another person has created, and you get to affect their world in different ways that you would not be doing in your world as an NPC or something like that. So being a player and a DM is a different can of worms in itself. But I totally agree. I think being a player allows for, one, a lot more relaxation, because you don't have to come up with all the crazy things that you have to do to prep for a game. You can kind of just show up and role play, and also improv a lot of stuff. unless you are doing something with your backstory or anything like that, it's not a big deal. So it's
Sure.
relaxing. And like you said, yeah, it might have something to do with D&D, but it's also just fun time. It's also just really relaxation time. You don't have to flip the switch on to your work or creative mode. It's just normal having fun time.
Yeah, and I mean, another simple thing that's probably, and I know I'm sure you've experienced it too, playing a game that's not recorded, that's
Oh
not
yeah, yeah.
streamed,
Oh, for sure.
just a game with friends for fun that doesn't make content.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, you might make a D&D story time video after the fact or some other content, but in the moment, it's just for you guys to have fun. And that's some of my favorite things to do at conventions, to circle back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is to get together with my friends who all make content and be like, you guys got like a couple hours? You got any plans, any panels or whatever? Let's play a game. I'll run it. I'll make something up, make a character real quick. Let's just go. And then like some of the most memorable games and the most memorable characters that we've made are characters from just like bullshit stuff we made up on the fly.
Yep.
And it's awesome.
No, you nailed it on the head. Absolutely. It's one of those things where it's you turn a hobby into a job. Sometimes the job can be a lot. But for people who are passionate like you and I about the actual job, it's not necessarily the worst, but whenever you get to do it and it doesn't have anything to do with the job, that's when you get back to the roots. That's when the passion is there without having to worry about the work side of things. And that's key. That's awesome.
Definitely.
All right. Well, Ted, it's getting around that time, about an hour and a half we've been talking. So I appreciate you. Would you like to take this moment real quick? This is kind of where we talk about if you have anything in the future coming up or any videos planned or maybe something that you plan on talking about. This is your time to kind of plug all that kind of stuff. So go ahead.
Sure. So, I've obviously got news videos come out when news comes out, so I can't plan for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this arrived on my doorstep a couple days ago. This guy right here, the Dark Souls RPG.
You got me.
This is
So
lucky enough to be apparently one of only 20 people to get one of these early copies.
Oh my God.
So I did a very high level intro, but I do plan on doing full coverage of this, specifically highlighting how they're going to attempt to replicate Dark Souls in 5e, a very non-lethal game.
Yeah.
The classes are different, but they're still obviously they have different names, right? I say it's like assassin, not rogue, right? Things of that nature. But how they're going to deal with the death and the dying and the, all of those mechanics, the dodging, right? That's obviously important, rolling out of the way.
Oh my God.
So
it's gonna be
so that we'll look into that. That's a thing. And then I'll just be continuing on. I have some fun things from some content creators that have sent some stuff over here, products that I plan to review. But I do plan on doing people asked, and I think I'm gonna do a revised top 10 magic items for the classes again. Start with the Artificer this time, because now it's an official class, because it wasn't when I started back in the day.
Right. And it's just it's the best class too, is what you meant to say.
and it also gives me an opportunity to skip over the stuff I covered last time.
Okay.
Right. Don't have to talk about those.
Yeah.
But also a lot of magic items have come out since then, to the point where I still get comments on those other videos like, well, why didn't you include this? I was like, because it came out 2 years later. That's why it's not on the list.
I love
I don't know what you want from me.
Homework.
I know, it's just like, it would have been really hard to do that. Yeah. But, my crystal ball is not working.
Predict that?
Yeah, I know. And then I've been alluding a long time, but I'm finally going to do it. My D&D Darkest Timeline video, which is the very real, very scary possibility of, with Hasbro making and WotC making so much money, and this revised rule set and things apparently coming in formats we've never seen before. They're shady. Maybe we create our own virtual tabletop that we put in some people's survey response under an NDA that only certain people know about. I have a lot of theories. I have some newer things that are cropping up that make me a little concerned. And from some folks in the industry, I've heard apparently there's a lot of concern, but they also want their voices heard. So this video may not just be me, it might be me with a bunch of other people airing why they're worried. And also as sort of like a dear Wizards of the Coast, please let us in, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
We would love to be in on this now from the ground floor, making content and learning how to do this together. Or you might force our hand to have all of the rest of us join forces to do our own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it might have the strength to be better than what you put out there.
That secret society shit.
Well, I mean, you know, I'll throw this out there. What if I got, not me personally, but me and a team of people got all of the virtual tabletops together, and you buy one thing once and you can use it on all of them.
Yeah.
You know, and like D&D Beyond 2, let's say, right? Like it's on there and this content is available to every single virtual tabletop. One purchase, all access. We could make that happen. It's a pretty big dent in some other folks' things, especially if we're also producing it, so we have full creative control over what we're going to do. And we can put it out everywhere on our own custom marketplace that we made. Or you can get the other guy's stuff. Well, it has the name, we're offering this kind of service. And hey, it's a book with a PDF code in the pocket. You know what I mean?
That's one of the, oh my God, that is one of the things that pisses me off so much right now, is that because everything is so separated, because D&D Beyond is its own entity and everything like that, you buy a book, but you have to buy it 6 or 7 times in order to get it everywhere you want it. You know what I mean? And then it's like,
and that's the, you know, this concept, because it makes people do it though. That's the problem, right? No one's boycotting this. And
it's like they don't have a choice. It's one of those things.
That exactly. So again, part of the point of this video that's coming out is, how far are they willing to take that concept? Are we talking microtransactions in the future for your D&D game? You laugh, but you also were laughing because you know it could happen. So be on the lookout for that in the near future.
It's a think piece. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, again, maybe I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I hope that WotC says, yeah, we'll keep the open game license going and no microtransaction subscription model. But, you know,
who knows?
That's a great way to make money.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, thank you very much. Go ahead and as a last ditch effort, ditch effort. I don't know what it's late. As a I don't know why I said it's not a last ditch effort, but as a last little bit to the stream here, go ahead and plug your stuff. Where can people find you on the internet?
Sure. Your best place would probably be YouTube. So youtube.com/Nerd Immersion. I upload videos, as we've discussed, all of the time. But I'm also on pretty much every other social media platform out there, right? I'm pretty active on Twitter. I've got a Discord server, which seemingly is better about updating you when my videos come out than YouTube is. So I would check out the Discord if you want. There's a pretty great community over there. But, you know, if you like weird videos about rolling stats and stuff, I have a TikTok and, you know, Instagram.
All Nerd Immersion, though, huh?
All Nerd Immersion on all the platforms.
That's good.
So
that's also there's another tip for any creators out there. Consistency with your brand. If you're going to be naming your stuff, you know, have all your stuff be that as well. Don't be like I started, where half my shit was Bumblebee and then like the other half was Nat One Fun, and I had to keep changing all my ads and social medias to match and stuff like that. So, all right. Well, thank you for the millionth time, Ted, for being here. Sure. You gave us some extremely insightful views on, you know, TTRPG and YouTube creation and everything like that. So thank you a million times over. Thank you to everybody in chat for being here, asking questions along the way, and kind of giving us some stuff to think on. Ted, we're definitely gonna have to check you out again on YouTube. If we can collaborate again on maybe another interview, I'd
Sure.
be so willing to sit down and talk again. I definitely will see you at probably PAX East is the next one, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
I
Yep.
will definitely see you at PAX East, so we can definitely catch up there and hang out. And that's pretty much all I got to go. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. I really do appreciate it. If you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, as Ted said before, right? Am I doing it right, Ted?
Yeah.
Please
Yeah.
subscribe, hit that subscribe button. I don't have any metrics because we're not that huge, but still, it's pretty cool if you would hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get up to 500 by the end of the year. So, yeah, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Keep being your best selves, everybody. Bye-bye.